Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back, okay? Always locked in, now got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Better 1,000 when you check the stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask. I just really hit the field. 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 Boy, I'm about to hit the field.
And we're back with another episode of the Hitting the Field podcast. It's your host, Jeremy Brener, here. And it is February 27th today. February 27th, which is basically March -3rd, right? Or -2nd. Sometimes it's -2nd, sometimes it's -3rd. But this is March. And March means one thing, and it's time for college basketball to take center stage where it truly deserves its place. Jeremy Brener here, alongside two of HTF's college basketball tycoons. I don't know if that's an appropriate word, but it's not really.
I mean, I'll take it.
Well,
I'm not going to argue.
How do you want to describe yourself, Kyle Partain? College babasketball, what?
Tycoon extraordinaire.
Are you a tycoon?
Everything.
I don't know if tycoon's the right word. I just
said
something. See, this is what I call filler words. That like when you don't know what to say, you just say whatever's the first thing on your mind.
Just call me Hefe.
Hefe, the college basketball Hefe, Kyle Partain. How you doing? How you doing, KP? College basketball Hefe.
I am doing great. Finally excited to talk some hoops. I love college basketball, and we are right at the sweet spot of the year for it.
Yes, and we also have Ms. China Davis.
Hi.
I'm
joking. Call me a fan. I'm a fan of college
basketball fan. All right.
Honestly, that's better.
That's good. See, keep it real simple. Like, and I'll call myself, college basketball, appreciator. I don't know.
Appreciator?
Appreciator.
Yo, this is starting off real nice.
This is real good. You know, you get that 2:30 feeling.
Oh, dude, the wall. I hit the wall
totally
about
feeling that right
15,
now.
30 minutes ago.
Oh yeah, especially when you haven't eaten all day. I don't got no brain food, but you know what? At least we got to get this done because March is here. This is the right time of the year where we got to talk hoops, college hoops. This is the time of the year. And we're really starting our full court press for our college basketball coverage here at Hitting the Field. We will have, several podcasts chronicling this March. We'll have some coverage on the show, all culminating with our show, not this upcoming show, but the show after. No, that's not our music. By God, is that college basketball music?
I just did a couple of random notes. If it sounded familiar, that's just total coincidence.
Yes. Well, we will have for the second straight year, we will have a March Madness special on Hitting the Field that come March 16th. So after spring break for us, but it's just the beginning for college basketball March Madness. So be on the lookout for that, and we will also be having several HTF podcasts throughout the next couple of weeks here. So. But this is where it starts, right here. And this is more of a, let's see where we're going and what to expect. I feel like I feel like there's a good majority of college basketball fans, people that don't really pay attention to college basketball until right around this time of the year. So this is more of like a primer of what we've seen so far in the season, what's coming up, what's to look forward to. Just one thing in the season that's maybe been surprising, and Kyle, I'll start with you. What's one thing that this has made this season unique?
What hasn't been surprising, I think, is the more important question.
Yeah.
Everything has been a shock this year. I think, to me, maybe the rise of Baylor to being this elite is probably the most surprising. Because, Baylor, you look at the past decade, they've been a consistently good team. I think we've seen them as high as a 3 seed, but as low as not making the NIT. but now they look like a perennial powerhouse. Are you kidding me?
Baylor 25-2 as of the recording of this podcast.
Their two losses: Washington and home versus Kansas.
Home versus Kansas, and then
neutral site versus the Huskies.
3-point losses in both games. And they have two ranked matches to end the season: home versus Texas Tech, and at West Virginia.
Yeah,
the Big 12's been pretty good this year.
It's a weird year for the Big 12 because usually we look at that conference and you get 7 or 8 out of the 10 teams in the field, in the March Madness field.
Yeah.
This year, Baylor and Kansas are essentially locks for 1 seeds.
Yes.
I could see maybe a 2 if Baylor or Kansas happens to slip up once or twice more along the way. I don't see that happening. They could. Those 2 are the class of that conference. Yeah. Then you look at West Virginia, Texas Tech. They're good teams. They're not Elite 8 teams. And then who? Iowa State's not the same. Nope. Kansas State isn't that good. Oklahoma State's not as good. Oklahoma's fallen off. Yep. It's not. For as great as Kansas and Baylor have been, the conference itself is not that good.
Yeah.
How weird is that?
All right. China, what are your thoughts on the Big 12 so far?
I like it. I think people kind of slept on the Big 12 just a tad bit because nobody really expected them.
Yeah.
They're like the team.
You're thinking it's the ACC or something like that,
right? Yeah, yeah. That's honestly that's what I always look to. I love the SEC as well, but I think the Big 12 is going to shock a lot of people. I think going forward they're going to have the stronger teams that's going to finish. Right now we can say they're looking good, but I think in the long run they're going to be the ones that are going to put it through, to be honest with you.
So Baylor and Kansas played this past weekend in Waco. Kansas comes out with the win. Udoka Azubuike.
That guy is scary. I am a big fan of you, sir. That's big man moves right there.
Yeah. Let's pull up his stats for the season because he's in line for like what you don't need to raise your hand. Nobody can see your hand.
I'm being polite.
Nobody can see your hand, so just speak up.
Kansas, when Azubuike is playing at his best, when he is playing at his best. In fact, let me rephrase that. If he's playing good, if Azubuike is really good inside the paint, there is not a single team in the country this season that is competitive or talented enough to knock off that Kansas team. However, that is only when Azubuike does not have a bad game. If he gets into foul trouble, very different Kansas team.
Azubuike's averaging 13 points a game, 10 boards, and 2.5 blocks a game. And he was the reason why Kansas won Saturday.
100%.
Right. Yeah, for sure. They didn't have an answer for him at all. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Speaking to the mic.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I also like Dotson. I think, he's a young guard, but how he played with Azubuike was just...
It's a good tandem.
Great. It's oh, man.
And now, look, I think this year is very different because there's, like... In years past, you'll see a blue blood like a Kentucky, like a Duke. That's very clearly head and shoulders away the best team in the country. Like we saw last year with Duke, where it was R.J. Barrett, Zion Williamson. Are we seeing some kind of comparison to them? Kyle shaking his head.
No, because even when Duke was at their best last season, they were beatable. Kansas at their best this season.
So you're saying that Dotson and Azubuike are better than Zion and R.J. Barrett were?
No, I'm saying that the rest of the country is not as good this season. There is not a single team, to me, that stands out as, wow, they're going to win the tournament.
Yeah,
but that's
which
not
always
for a
makes
lack
for
of talent
great...
on Kansas' team. I think Kansas...
It's a more competitive bunch.
Yeah, Kansas, by the way, is definitely a blue blood of college basketball. I do believe they're the best team in the country. I predicted them to win the whole thing preseason. But yeah, Azubuike has to be playing his best. Dotson finally starting to find that rhythm these past 6-7 games. He's really got into the flow of running Bill Self's offense. He's kind of stepped into that hole left by Mason after Mason left Kansas. And I think Kansas is starting to peak at a very, very good time. I don't see them losing another regular season game. However, I don't think they'll win the Big 12 tournament. They never.
So who's going to win the Big 12 tournament?
Oh, Baylor's going to win the Big 12
really?
tournament. Yeah. No, Kansas never wins the Big 12 tournament.
So let's talk.
They never win.
So let's talk about Baylor and why. What is the argument for Baylor here as the number 1 team in the country?
See, it's hard for me because I don't think Baylor is the number 1 team in the country. However, if you're going to argue them, it's depth.
Why would they be Kansas?
Depth.
Why would they be Kansas?
Depth. Okay. Because it's not a 2-man roster. Kansas, Dotson, and Azubuike are that is your peak of talent. When those two are playing well, there is no defense that is going to be able to stop them, because then you leave other role players open and available to make moves. However, with Baylor, you've got, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, 4 people averaging just over 8 points a game.
Yeah, 4 players are averaging 9.5 points or more.
Yeah, that's
Jared
what I'm saying.
Butler, Masio Teague, Davion Mitchell, Freddie Gillespie.
That is depth at its finest out of the starting lineup.
I would love to have a team that has that.
That is near impossible to guard all 4 of them night in, night out. Someone is going to be left open, and someone's going to make you pay for it. You just have to prevent, or you have to play. You play to win. You don't play to not lose to Baylor. And to me, again, I don't believe Baylor's the best team in the country.
Yeah,
I believe they're certainly capable.
China, how good is this Baylor team? Like, how good can they be?
I think also what Kyle said, the depth of that team. I think Baylor has showed in and out they got scorers. They can go to people that can score.
Right.
As far as like athleticism, Baylor is probably one of the best in my books, to be honest with you. They're going to be tough to beat, I think, down the stretch.
Because, I mean, they play teams very well. They play Kansas really well. So, I mean, what could stop... So, what is going to be the Achilles heel for Baylor this season? If they don't go to the national championship, what's going to do them in? Like, is it going to be, is it just they're going to run into a team that's just super talented?
They're going to run into a team that shoots from the perimeter.
Yeah.
And Baylor's a very interior team. When they are not up to par on the defensive side of the ball, which, to be fair, not everyone is this season. But when you're giving up shots from the perimeter, which, again, is not Baylor's strength, they're going to find themselves in trouble when they get to the Elite Eight against a team like Dayton or a team like San Diego State that loves to shoot outside. They're going to be in trouble. Heck, even Villanova could make a run and give Baylor a run for their money. Villanova is a Class A. That is a classic perimeter shooting team.
So you mentioned Dayton and you mentioned San Diego State. That's where this conversation is turning into right now. So Dayton, San Diego State have sniffed in the top 10 this season. They have been, we mentioned it earlier. I think we talked about it earlier before we came on. It was just the fact that anybody can win in college basketball. It's so nice. It creates the parity of it is what makes it so exciting, especially with this season. So looking at the rankings right now, out of the top, Kansas and Baylor are 1 and 2. Gonzaga, it doesn't even. It feels like Gonzaga is a Power 5 team because they're always at the top of but they're not. They're a West Coast Conference team. They're number 3 in the country. Dayton out of the A10, number 4. And then San Diego State on the Mountain West, they're number 5. We have 3 Power 5 teams in the top 5. Can any of these? Which of these 3 teams do you like the most? China. We'll start with you. Gonzaga, Dayton, San Diego State. Which of these 3 teams do you like the most to possibly go as far as they possibly can in March?
I think I've always been a fan of Gonzaga's offense. Like I said, they're another perimeter team. I think that I don't know. I gotta give it to. I don't know. Dayton's a tough one.
Yeah,
man.
That's the thing is like all of these teams. You look at Dayton. They could have 2 of the top 10 players in the country playing for Dayton, and like it's just there's so much But what I do like with Gonzaga though is they're experienced. They're experienced.
Yeah.
Mark Few is a guy that keeps players there very long. Killian Tilly is, I believe, a senior this year, right? Yeah, he's a senior this year. 13 points a game. Philip Petrusev, also an upperclassman, I believe, sophomore. He's been there. So, like, that team also, depth. You have 6 players averaging double figures, and then 1 averaging 9 and a little more, almost 10. So that's nearly 7 players averaging 10 points or more.
And that is why Gonzaga is the best equipped of those 3. That right there. You can throw the coaching out the window. And when you are that talented and that deep, I'm sorry, you've got a chance to make a run. And I think Gonzaga can win it? No. I think their ceiling is the Elite Eight.
Really?
But then again, you look at the rest of the country. Why can't Gonzaga run the country? Why couldn't Gonzaga run the table?
When you have so many teams that have arguments to make a run, I honestly feel like it's going to come down to matchups.
Oh, absolutely.
And who's gonna and like which team gets the best road to Atlanta?
It truly it's always been about this. March Madness has always been about this. It is whoever. If you're a big physical interior team, you cannot afford in the second weekend to go up against a perimeter shooting team. You can't afford to do it. It does not end well for
We've
the
seen
interior
really good teams. Like
Look
Duke.
at Villanova 3 years ago?
Yeah.
Look at the way they manhandled, I think 2 years ago, the way they manhandled Michigan
The year
in
they
the
won.
championship,
Yeah.
Kansas in the Final Four, West Virginia, the Elite Eight.
They
It
won
is
that tournament with ease.
Unbelievable.
They won that tournament with ease.
Because they played interior teams as a perimeter shooting team. That is the key right there. If you are going to beat an outside shooting team, you better be sure that you can shoot the three as well. Or you better be sure that you're willing to give up points in the paint while guarding the perimeter. And that is why teams like Gonzaga, teams like Baylor, they cannot afford to get an unfavorable matchup in that second weekend. When you do play a team like a fourth or fifth seeded Villanova, or a fourth or fifth seeded Creighton, who's playing unbelievable right now.
They are playing really well. Yeah. I want to bring this back to Dayton, because this is like I feel like Dayton needs some love right here. They average, they shoot from three. They are a 36% shooting team from three. Obi Toppin is on Heisman watch. He's a top 5 player in the country.
Heisman
is the wrong sport. Naismith Player of the Year watch list probably.
Yeah.
Should be. If not, if he isn't already, should be.
He should be.
Yeah. So, what about Dayton this year is just different? What's different about Dayton this year that what makes them worthy of possibly winning this tournament?
I'm not gonna lie to you. Dayton actually surprised me. I usually don't pay attention to Dayton just because I haven't really
it's
seen
an A10 school.
much of them this season. They honestly surprised me. So games and looking at their schedule, I haven't really been paying much attention to them, but I will now.
Did you really just say an A10 school? It's because it's an A10 school?
Well, I feel like the A10 gets a bad...
Dude, Rhode
rep.
Island has been really good lately. VCU is a perennial team.
That's what I'm saying.
A10.
That's what I'm
Dayton's
saying.
been great. Richmond's had history. UMass has had history.
That's what I'm saying.
Davidson has had history.
They have.
That's a good conference.
It is a good conference.
I mean,
but
you look
feel
at
like
St. Louis, too.
And I'm saying it's often overlooked.
Oh, I would agree with that.
That's where I was getting at.
It's better than the American Athletic Conference.
The A10,
dare I say?
Yeah, it is. It is.
It's probably the 7th best conference. But Dayton deserves to get some love. That has been a really good program over the past 6 years.
26-2.
Yeah, I mean,
their losses come.
It was Kansas and Colorado, both
Kansas.
top 20 teams
by 6 points or less, both of them.
Both top 20 teams, and Kansas in overtime in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
This team almost beat the number 1 team in the country.
Yeah.
This is a really good team, and that was with Azubuike playing well. Azubuike put up 30 points in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Dayton is as good as it gets in the country this year. Where's the love? Why is Dayton not ranked in front of Gonzaga? Why is Dayton not number 3 in the country right now?
Honestly, it's because of recency and the fact that Gonzaga is always up there.
Dayton just made the Elite Eight 4 years ago.
4 years ago, what have you done for me lately? Gonzaga made a national championship in that 4 years. So
right, but that's ridiculous to me. Dayton has been a very good program. I think last year was the first time they've missed the tournament. Did they make? I think they missed it last year.
Dayton?
Yeah. I think last year was the first year they've missed in 3 or 4 seasons. That's a consistent program, and that's because of the new head coaching system. That's swap up in the head
Miller.
coach. Yeah, that's. I just don't get the disrespect for Dayton. That is, Obi is a top 5 pick for the NBA draft. There's no question in my mind he's a top 5 pick. This is a really, really strong basketball program and should be considered to move out of the A10. It is that good of a program.
Yeah. They already are the regular season champions for the A10. They have a 3-game lead over Rhode Island.
And Rhode Island's a good team.
And Rhode Island is a good team.
Rhode Island, you look at this conference, Rhode Island, Richmond, VCU, St. Louis, they could all all be a sleeper team to make a bid steal in the tournament.
Don't sleep on the A10.
It's going to be a fun tournament to watch, guys.
A10.
I'm waking up.
So yeah, waking up. Good morning. San Diego State's another team that I think we should talk about. They're the number 5 team in the country currently. They have 1 loss in the season. They just lost
against UNLV.
to UNLV. was about a week ago. Yeah, 5 days ago to UNLV at home. At home. How does a team go this long without losing? In this season in particular.
Can you do me a favor, and I'll tell you why, but I want you to look at this.
Okay.
Pull up the Mountain West Conference standings.
Who's in the Mountain?
Tell me who's in second place.
Utah State.
What's their overall record?
23-7.
Do you think they have any prayer of making the tournament?
No.
Probably not.
Look down at number 3. Who's number 3?
Nevada.
Tell me what their record is.
19-10.
Again, do you think 19-10 in this Mountain West is good enough to make the
It will
tournament?
not be.
The reason that San Diego State will not make it past the Sweet 16 is because they are not nearly battle-tested enough in college hoops.
I mean,
their best win is Iowa, and Iowa's a good win. Don't get me wrong.
They beat Creighton.
Okay, Creighton's another.
They beat
really
Creighton
good
by 30.
Those are two really. Yeah, but Creighton beginning of the season is very different from Creighton
They beat Utah.
than Creighton in conference play.
They beat
Utah's nothing special. Utah's nothing special. I'm just saying, you look at the Mountain West. That is not a good Mountain West conference. San Diego State, very talented. There's a reason they won those games. You win that many games, you're a good team. It doesn't matter what conference you're playing in. To me, San Diego State is absolutely deserving of a 1 or 2 seed in March Madness.
But okay, and here's something
them.
that we probably will have a debate about for a couple of times. I could see it possibly coming out here. And I'll bring it up now. San Diego State, if they get a 1 seed, do you want to be a 1 seed? Because if you're going to be San Diego State as the 1 seed, you're the 4th number 1 and you're going out east. Would you rather, if you're San Diego State, China, would you rather be the number 1 seed? You're the number 1 seed, but you got to go play out east in, where is it this year? New York? In New York City. Or you're a 2 seed and you get to play on the West Coast. Would you rather be the West 2 seed, where Gonzaga is probably going to be the number 1, or would you rather be out east as a number 1? We get a lot of these debates. A couple of, it's not every year we get this,
right.
But it's, it happens at least every 2-3 years. And San Diego State happens to be in that position this year. Gonzaga was in that position a couple years ago. I think the year they went to the title game, they were in that position. They got the 1 seed and they made it to the title game. So, what would you rather be? Would you rather play close to home, but might have to play a better team? Or would you rather play far from home and might not have to play tougher teams?
I'm going to go with the east side. I'm
Yeah.
go with the east.
You want to be a number 1 seed in the East?
Right. Nah, yeah. So, going
Why?
back to what Kyle said, looking at the conference, they aren't really playing good teams. So,
Yeah.
it's going to come back and bite them, So, I think that if they continue to play how they play, they may have a chance, but I don't see them going as far as.
Kyle shaking his head.
I don't see them.
So, what's the real difference here between a 15 versus a 16 seed?
Not much at all.
There's not.
What's the difference between playing a 4 seed versus a 6 seed?
Or 3 seed.
Yeah, there's not enough of a difference to warrant playing all the way.
But what's the difference? Here's the thing. What's the difference in playing Gonzaga or a Florida State?
You're saying
Florida State
Gonzaga?
is good.
You're saying Gonzaga's the 1?
Assuming Gonzaga's the 1,
Oh, you play Gonzaga every time.
or like a Florida State or a team that could be out there.
I take Gonzaga every time. I think San Diego State actually matches up favorably against Gonzaga. I think they both play similar styles of gameplay. I think that is a great matchup, and you don't have to travel nearly as far as if you were going out to play Florida State. This, to me, is a no-brainer. San Diego State should absolutely shoot for a 2 seed.
Yeah.
There's no reason to ever want to go out
Hey,
all the way
yeah,
to the West Coast.
out west,
You're
you're
playing
in
in
LA.
LA. Are you kidding me? That's what? However far that is from San Diego. What?
Do you think that they would
4
put
hours, if
San
that?
Diego State though as a 2 seed in LA?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This year, it lines up so well for the West seed. You look at it, Oregon is absolutely going to be the 3 seed out west, and then Arizona 4. It works out so perfectly for the West Coast teams where it's no decision to be made. I think the committee is actually really happy because I think it's pretty much locked into place on which teams are going to be where. San Diego State losing a game is extremely beneficial for that committee because now they don't have to worry about unfavorable matchups out as far as the West.
Because
is
if
concerned.
San Diego State didn't lose that game,
they
are the number 1.
They would be the 4th 1 seed.
You can't just say that. Yeah, and then where's Gonzaga going to go play? They're going to go play in Houston?
Well, Gonzaga would still be ranked higher than them.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, maybe not. Maybe not after the loss to BYU. Maybe they wouldn't have been in front of San Diego State.
And wasn't it last year that Gonzaga lost to BYU in the West Coast Conference Championship?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
BYU's they've found something recently. That's a good program these past couple of years. I don't know what it is about BYU, but what are they ranked now? 16, something like that.
They're ranked 17 right now.
17.
That's going to be
that's an interesting conference finals, right? And don't even discount St. Mary's. St. Mary's is still a good program out west in the West Coast Conference. That should be a fun tournament once we get to the semifinals.
Yep. I mean, hey. And look, BYU did beat Gonzaga earlier this week.
Yeah, BYU's for real. People don't tend to watch the West Coast Conference if it's not named Gonzaga,
especially if
especially
if you're on the East Coast.
You don't know who's in the West Coast Conference. So why would anyone pay attention to BYU basketball or St. Mary's basketball if you don't live out there?
Yeah.
Well, lesson up. Y'all should pay attention because that's a fun conference to follow.
Yeah. Let's talk ACC. ACC. I think it's time to talk ACC. So Florida State's number 6, Duke's number 7, and Louisville's number 11. Louisville was the number 1 rank for a while, but they've fallen on some hard times. They played the ACC, so that's what happens when you play in a really good conference. You tend to lose some games. Is the ACC the best conference in basketball this year? No, Kyle. Why?
No.
Why?
The ACC is not deep. It's really weird for me to say that. The ACC this year is not deep. And I don't even think any of those top 3 could really be considered a championship.
What is the best
contender.
conference in basketball, do you think? Personally?
Top to bottom, the Big Ten is the best conference for college basketball this season.
All right.
You look at the Big Ten. You've got who's in the lead right now? Probably
Maryland.
Maryland is in the lead, followed by I don't know. It's just
Penn State?
I don't know the order. I don't know the standings. But you look at Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan State, Iowa, Rutgers. All of these teams are getting Wisconsin. That's 8 teams.
So your
right
idea
of the
best conference, your idea of the best conference is top to bottom.
Top to bottom.
But
absolutely.
in terms of top heavy.
Oh, top heavy. The Big 12 is the most top heavy.
Because they have
there's
Kansas
no
and Baylor.
denying that they've got Kansas and Baylor, but the Big 10 top to bottom is the deepest conference without a doubt. You've got 8.
The Big 10 has 6 ranked
conference
teams.
Contenders.
6 ranked teams, including number 9 Maryland, number 16 Penn State,
Illinois
18 Iowa,
really good. Look at that.
Michigan, Illinois will be in the tournament. Wisconsin is going to be tough to make the tournament.
Look at those
probably,
standings.
but they've been playing really well.
You go down to Purdue, right? Mm-hmm. Purdue is one of, I believe, Lenardi's first 4 out. What's their conference standing?
7 and 10.
No, what's their place in conference?
They are 1, 2, 3, 4. A lot. 11.
They're 11 out of 14 teams, and they're one of the first 4 out. That is
They've lost 4. They've lost 4 games in a row. I don't know if they're going to be in it.
They probably won't. But the fact that they're even in consideration as the 11th best team,
that
is absurd.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a team or a conference with 14 teams?
Let me
have
ask
as
you
many
this,
as 11 in contention?
Who is the best team in the ACC right now?
In the ACC,
Florida State.
I agree with China. It pains me to say Florida State.
Florida State. Talk to me right
now. Florida State. First of all, the atmosphere playing their teams are just going to.
Yes.
The fans for Florida State are just ridiculous. That game against Louisville solidified for me that Florida State is a team that's definitely going to win the ACC championship. They're half a game ahead of Duke. You got what's his name? Forrester playing out of his mind.
Mm-hmm. Trent Forrest, yep.
You got Osborne playing out of his mind.
Yep.
Yes, those 2 players. And they also have depth. Like, they're not a talented team, yet the way they play team ball, their defense is just...
It kind of reminds me of the team that Jonathan Isaac was on.
Oh man!
It reminds me of Jonathan Isaac's Florida State team, and they were a good team. They were a really good team. Yeah,
I think, of course, they're gonna make the Sweet 16. Is if they're gonna, and didn't they made it to the Elite 8?
I think Elite 8. What, a year or 2 ago?
Last year they were the Sweet 16.
Sweet 16
the year before
team.
They were the Elite 8.
Yeah. So they have, and it's a battle-tested team.
Yeah. They're very consistent for the past couple of years. I think this team will make the Sweet 16 again. I'm not too sure about the Elite 8, though. But for sure, the best team in the ACC.
But what about that team in Durham, North Carolina?
I'm gonna plead the fifth
The
on that
Duke,
one.
the Duke Blue Devils. Can you really ever count Duke out?
You can't.
Dude, I just don't know. What Duke team is going to show up every night? Wake
Yeah.
Forest? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Wake Forest? NC State? What is going on in Durham right now? What is
The
going on?
water's
This
weird.
this team is so much better than the way they're playing right now, which is not convincing considering we're coming up on March. You can't be playing this kind of basketball. You have to be playing your peak right now. And they're just not playing their peak. I do not believe that Duke is even going to get a 2 seed the way they're currently playing.
I mean, but maybe that's a good thing for this team.
No. If Duke isn't a top 2 seed, they do not perform in the tournament. I mean, I don't know the stat exactly, but when they're a 3 seed or lower, they've lost how many times in the first
They
round?
lost to Mercer.
I very specifically remember Mercer and Lehigh both beating Duke.
They were a 2 seed when they played
still
Lehigh.
that's even a worse. My point is, Duke, when they are not playing as the top team in the country, they are very susceptible
but they
to early
can
exits.
be the top team in the country.
I don't believe so.
I think they can.
What makes you think that?
I think Trey Jones.
Trey Jones?
I think Trey Jones could have one of those March you just remember for years and years to come. I really do.
That man needs to be able to shoot the ball consistently before I can consider that.
And you know what?
He's got the talent to shoot it. Don't get me wrong. He can shoot, but it's just not consistent.
But I think what you're going to see here from Coach K and what you're going to see with Duke here, they're going to rely on Trey Jones a lot in March.
They need to because of that leadership.
He's the one player that was there last year that's really a huge factor for this team now. And he's gonna set the tone, and they're gonna face some difficult challenges in March. They will,
Duke,
if they can get there.
Duke, to me, will not get past the Sweet 16. I think they're a second weekend team, but Duke is going to likely go into that round as a 2 or 3 seed. Mm-hmm. And you're telling me if Duke plays a team, we get to that second round, the third round, the Sweet 16. I don't believe Duke is talented enough to knock off a team like Michigan or Michigan State. As flawed as both of those teams are, I believe they have been more consistent down the March stretch run of this season than anything that Duke has done. Mm-hmm. And there is so much value on playing your best basketball at this point in the season. If you stumble going into the tournament, your odds of winning are not very good. They're just not. It's not success breeds confidence.
Yes.
Duke is not having success right now.
No, they're not. I mean, that's hard to say because Duke is 23-5, but that's a down year for Duke.
It's a strange season, man, because a down year for Duke typically means a great year for Kentucky or someone along those lines. Mm-hmm. Then you look at North Carolina. What's North Carolina doing?
Yeah.
I forgot all about North Carolina.
It's a bad season in the ACC. And
North Carolina 11-17.
Wow.
Do we even?
They're not even
I was
close.
going to say, do we even have anything to say about North Carolina? Because
Cole Anthony is going top 5.
Cole Anthony, top 5.
For sure.
But that's about it.
But like,
I don't even know who else is on that team.
all jokes aside, the ACC has really struggled this year, which is kind of strange to see in basketball, considering they have been, without a doubt, the best team or the best
I
conference.
think part of that is also because Virginia is also struggling.
I was just about to say that Virginia is not the same team that they have been the past 5-6 seasons under Tony Bennett.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen them struggle as much, and that's because,
And they're 12-5. They're 2 games back.
and again, Virginia's a good team. They will end up. They're playing well right now. They've won how many in a row? 4 in a row? 5 in a row?
Who, Virginia?
Virginia.
Yeah.
They're playing well.
Let me see.
The problem is,
fact
without
check
Kyle
on that.
Guy, that offense has zero
5 in a row.
functionality.
They've won 5 games in a
Yeah.
row.
So Virginia's playing their best basketball of the season right now. However, that's just not enough. Their defense is great. It's not as good as it has been. And their offense is not nearly as good as it has been.
Do you think that Virginia could make a run?
Define run. How far are you thinking?
Like second weekend?
Yeah, they can make the second weekend.
Yeah.
They can make. I think they can get Sweet 16. I'm not sure. I'm not sure they're talented enough to make it after the Sweet 16. But if you get the right matchup, they can make Sweet 16. I expect them to win the first round. I expect them to win their first matchup.
All right. Let's move on over to the Big East. The Big East could be, outside of the Big Ten, the best conference in the country. It features number 10, Creighton, number 12, Villanova, number 13, Seton Hall. That's a deep conference. It's a good balanced conference. It's going to make for a great tournament this year at Madison Square Garden, right? It's still Madison Square Garden. No, that hasn't changed. Yeah. So, I mean, what Big East team are you most excited about?
Besides Creighton, which I've always been a fan of Creighton, I'm gonna go with actually Marquette. I love Marcus Houston. I think that he is the go-to guy. How he plays is it's not Marcus Houston, it's Marcus Howard. Sorry,
Marcus Howard. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways,
we knew
I got the name.
Yeah. We knew what you were talking about.
I think that Marquette has been playing well as of lately. He's also a guy that I think is going to make a big run, like how you described Trey Jones to be. But I think Marquette is going to. That's the one I'm most excited.
Marcus
and it's just
Howard,
fun watching him play, watching the team play. He is the go-to guy. I'm gonna go with Marquette on this.
Marcus Howard leads the country, 27 points a game.
I completely agree with this one. How can you not get excited over Marquette and Howard? That is an unbelievably fun team to watch. Now, granted, they were disappointing in last year's tournament. I believe Marquette has turned a corner. I think they're a potential second-round team. The entire Big East is like that, though. I think the whole conference is capable. Well, not the whole conference, but I think all the teams that are going to get in the field are capable of making a second weekend appearance, except maybe Butler. Butler's really fallen off the map. But we look at Creighton, you look at Seton Hall, you look at Villanova, you look at Marquette. All four of those teams can make the Sweet 16. They're all exciting in their own way. Creighton is playing the best basketball they've played in years.
Yeah, since McDermott.
Yeah. Villanova is that's a consistently good team. You know what you're going to get out of Villanova. Seton Hall's kind of had a rebirth this year. I know they were pretty good last year, but this year they had a little bit of a slump midseason. But since they've, I just think this entire conference is going to be really exciting, and I think this actually will be the most entertaining conference tournament.
Seton Hall has 2 games at the end of the season: home at Villanova and then at Creighton.
I'll be impressed if they can get those.
Yeah, but they've proved they're number 1 in the conference right now.
No, I agree, but that's a tough finish to your schedule.
Yeah, Creighton and Villanova are both 1 game back. Marquette's 4 games back. Providence also 3 games back.
You keep.
But okay, I mentioned Providence because here's the thing. I feel like every year there's always one team, maybe 2, that don't make the tournament, shouldn't make the tournament, but when they win that conference tournament, it bursts the bubble for some team that's on the bubble. Which team could that be this year? Could it be Providence?
To go off the bubble or in because
of the tournament? To go in because of the tournament.
I think Providence is in regardless.
Okay.
I think that team might be Mississippi State out of the SEC. That might be able to burst someone's bubble.
Interesting.
I think that might be one of those bid stealers out of the SEC. I know they're just projected to miss the tournament. I think there's a lot on the line for Mississippi State, and I think they will play their best basketball.
Because I'll say this, teams with a lot on the line, but also not a lot to lose, tend to play really well in March.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you see a lot of lower seeds that, that's why Cinderella exists in March, because I do believe that pressure is, there's no more, I feel like that's why March Madness is so great. It's because there's so much pressure, and you're putting pressure on people that shouldn't perform well under pressure.
I mean, what does a team like Iona have to lose?
Exactly. What does a team like Lehigh have to lose?
Yeah.
What does a team like Loyola Chicago got to lose?
You just go out and have the most fun of your life.
What does UMBC got to lose?
Listen,
nothing.
The teams like the Blue Bloods have it all to lose. These underdogs don't have
They're
anything.
They're supposed to win.
Yeah. You look at Kentucky. If Kentucky doesn't make the Elite Eight this year, it's a failed season. Mm-hmm. That's awful. If UCF ever made the Elite Eight, I would be ecstatic. Are you kidding me?
I was ecstatic when they made the second round.
Yeah, that's my point. Is the tournament means so much for so many people that it just is so exciting to watch this bubble race heat up.
Mm-hmm. So, bubble race heating up. Let's look at the bracket a little bit. We're going to look at Joe Lunardi's bracketology on ESPN.com to kind of guide us. So the last 4 teams in: Oklahoma, USC out of the Pac-12, Providence, and NC State, who just got their big win against Duke about a week ago. First 4 out include Richmond in the A-10, Stanford in Pac-12, UCLA in the Pac-12, and your aforementioned Mississippi State Bulldogs in the SEC. So, I guess, and your next four out, Memphis out of the
Are we
AAC,
really seeing Alabama? Is that right?
Alabama and the SEC, Georgetown, and South Carolina, SEC.
Oh, I don't know about those ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, look, bracketology. How much do you follow bracketology, Kyle? Like, tell me, because I know you've.
In the past, I've made my own bracketology. I thought about doing it this year, but I don't have the time. But like, if I'm looking at bracketology, right?
Like how
the most important thing is to not overreact to a single game, and that is exactly what is happening with teams like UCLA. Why is UCLA on the bubble? What have they done all season? As a standard college basketball fan, I don't know how closely y'all follow. When has UCLA been in any sort of news for y'all?
When Sharif O'Neal announced he was transferring.
Yeah, that's true.
Is that enough to put them on the bubble?
I mean, if anything, it takes them off the bubble.
That's my point. People overreact to a single one or two games. You got to look at the whole season. People forget about non-conference play. Non-conference play matters.
They lost to Hofstra.
That's what I'm getting at. Why is UCLA on the bubble?
Cal State Fullerton is a loss.
And I'm not knocking these other programs that they're losing to.
So they lost to USC. They lost to Stanford.
Again, I'm not knocking these other programs, but like, you can't lose to that kind of thing if you want to be in March Madness. I'm sorry. You cannot, unless those teams are having exceptional seasons like Wofford last year or like Belmont last year, you can't afford to lose to them. I'm sorry. That's not enough to get a Power 5 team into the tournament. You have to show consistency all season long. That is why I believe Mississippi State would get in over them. I think Mississippi State and Providence have both been consistently better than the other teams on the bubble. Look at Memphis. Memphis has fallen apart.
Yeah.
Those teams don't have a right to be on the bubble right now. I would rather see someone like East Tennessee State on the bubble for all I care.
Memphis is the next four out. I believe East Tennessee State.
Are they in as an at-large?
They were at one point. Don't see them. Oh, they are as an 11.
Okay, so that's what I'm getting at. I would rather see this kind of thing happen. Like, reward teams that have been good all season, not teams that are playing well at the end of the season.
Yes. So, as we go into the last week plus of the regular season before we get into conference play, what is one storyline, Kyle, that you're looking forward to the most? Or what's something that fans should be looking out for before, the real chaos begins?
That 12 seed line. Mm-hmm. That's where people need to keep their eyes on.
So according to Joe Lunardi's bracketology, as of I believe today, February 24th, so that was a couple days ago, the 12 seeds are as follows: Liberty, NC State, Oklahoma, USC, Providence, and Yale.
Those are some scary 12.
Of all of those, how many do you think can beat their respective 5 seeds?
And then of the 5 seeds, they are as follows: Colorado, Michigan State, West Virginia, Michigan.
Let's take a look at this. Michigan plays Yale in the opening round. Do you feel confident that Michigan can beat Yale?
No.
Look at Michigan State. Do you feel confident they can beat the winner of NC State and Oklahoma?
No.
Look at Colorado. Do you feel confident they can beat Liberty?
I don't like Liberty. But
and
yes.
What's the other? Providence? No. Who's
West Virginia beating a USC or Providence?
Do you feel confident in West Virginia?
Of the 5 seeds, that's the one.
West Virginia's the best. About. I agree. But you look at that 5-12. The 12 seed is typically reserved for either your play-in games or the best of your automatic bids that aren't from power leagues. That is why those best teams from the non-power leagues, they win their first game because those are legitimately good programs.
And especially when they're playing in Dayton in the first 4 and they have that momentum going for
Exactly.
them.
So the teams that aren't automatic bids, that have that play-in game, already have momentum from a conference win or from a tournament win. That is why I believe...
Do you like the first 4 rule?
It's basketball.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't be upset if it got rid of it.
Okay.
I think it's a little...
Should it be more? Should it be 8?
No, it shouldn't be more.
Okay.
I think at some point you're just giving the tournament to... You're just asking for money, which... If you're going to add, you might as well add an entire new round.
That's fair.
But and that's too much.
Yeah.
But no, the 5-12 is the most exciting point in the season. And there are so many different teams that are competing for that 12 seed line right now. I don't know if you're going to get an automatic bid. I don't know if you're going to get an at-large. Because I just don't know how many bid thieves are going to be around this year.
Yeah.
So if you're a fan of a team that is in the line of fire for getting that number 5 seed, your eyes better be on that bubble for the entire rest of this of this conference season.
Yeah. China, what is one thing you're looking forward to the most in this next couple week plus?
More upsets.
More upsets.
Period.
Period.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's
it.
That's
You don't
all
want to
I-
add as to
I'm
who
not adding nothing. Upsets. That's it.
upsets. Well, I'm pretty sure that will happen at some
You
point.
got a prediction on an upset?
You got to start the sentence again. You said period, so
I know.
yeah.
Well, you can't add another sentence after the period.
Yeah.
Let me look and see.
All right. So yeah, while China does some research, I'll throw out mine.
Oh, you got one?
Yeah, yeah.
What is it?
I'm actually really looking forward to seeing this how this Big East works out.
Yeah.
I think that it's a very even keel between those three teams at the top, Creighton and Villanova and Seton Hall. And I think that I wouldn't be surprised if any of those teams won. And it wouldn't surprise me either if Providence found a way to sneak in.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking forward to. In fact, honestly, and I'll say this, I actually like championship week more than the tournament.
My heart.
I'm gonna keep it real. I actually really love championship week.
Oh, I love it.
Championship Saturday might be my favorite day of the year.
No, the first Friday of the tournament of March Madness. First Friday.
Yeah, that's also right there. But I love that championship Saturday where you can just, you wake up, the America East tournament's on, you watch it.
Oh, I love the
Stony
America
Brook
East.
gets in.
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm saying is like it's a bunch of the small schools that get their moment to shine. That's what I like.
Well, that
to
should
see.
start next week. The tournament should be starting next week. For some of these,
I believe
conferences.
so. Yeah, because how it works is Selection Sunday's on the 15th. So Selection Saturday is on the 14th. So the first final is usually the Ohio Valley,
Yep.
Murray State's conference, Belmont, those schools. That will be the 7th.
Yeah.
So right when UCF starts spring break is when we'll get into that. China, do we have any upset predictions possibly?
I got two
yet?
picks if we're still waiting.
KP's going to go first.
I don't know how much of a big upset this first one is, but I like Wisconsin to win the Big Ten tournament.
Ooh. Okay.
And then I also believe Nevada is going to win the Mountain West tournament.
That would be
Those are
very...
two picks that I believe will happen.
Because that's when chaos starts.
That's
when
your
chaos
bubble
starts.
line. You start to get nervous.
And then, pop.
Yep. So
Pop goes that bubble.
To be honest, Wisconsin's in regardless. They're not stealing anyone's bid.
Yeah.
But you look at Nevada. Oh. Mm-hmm. Who's the last one in right now? Is it Providence? NC State. Bye-bye, NC State. Yeah, and they just blew out Duke. Like,
Pretty bad.
Yeah.
it's time to get nervous.
All right.
Well, those are my picks.
All right, China.
All right, I'm switching over to the SEC. All right,
Okay.
so I think the best team in the SEC right now is Auburn. However, I kind of want the upset, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to get ridiculed for this, but I actually like Georgia. I think
Georgia.
Anthony Edwards is screw me if I know, but I think as far as how Georgia's been playing, I think Anthony
Edwards is probably the most exciting player in the country.
Oh my god,
he's one of the most exciting players in the country.
He makes it fun to get, and Georgia has been off the radar for a while now. I think Georgia is gonna pull the upset there. I'm going with that.
Yeah. Georgia, they're 4-11 in conference
Yeah.
play. That would be a story.
I think you're way more likely to see South Carolina win the SEC tournament than Georgia. Mm-hmm. And South Carolina's far, far from a lock of even winning one game.
Yeah.
I think Kentucky should be the absolute favorite to win the SEC. I think they're by far the best team in the conference.
Yep. All right. Well, I guess that's a good place to park. But yeah, guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of the HTF podcast. Keep an eye on us all March long as we dive deep into the bracket, culminating on March 16th with the 1 hour special episode hosted by Kyle Partain. And we'll be previewing the entire bracket, figuring out, what top to bottom, really diving deep into what March is all about. Be sure to check out Kyle Partain's Hitting the Crew episode tomorrow on our YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe, and on Apple Podcasts. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Hitting the Field for all the HTF content you need. We'll also be back on Monday for another new episode of Hitting the Field. Thank you guys so much for tuning in from inside the WNSC studio at the University of Central Florida. It's Jeremy Brener with Kyle Partain and China Davis, thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Things gonna change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand.